What if I told you there's one moment, one single event in Benjamin Netanyahu's early life that shaped every political decision he ever made, including the ones that changed the Middle East forever? And what if I told you you won't believe what that moment actually was? Stick around till the end, because everything you think you know about Netanyahu makes a lot more sense when you hear this. So let me ask you something. How does a kid who spends his teenage years in Philadelphia suburbs end up becoming one of the most powerful and polarizing figures in the Middle East? And why does his name, Netanyahu, show up in news cycles tied to war, peace, corruption charges, diplomacy, and even nuclear deals? Let's rewind. Benjamin Netanyahu was born in 1949 in Tel Aviv, but he grew up in Jerusalem, with a historian father who saw world politics through a deep, painful memory of Jewish history. But here's the twist. Netanyahu didn't stay in Israel. As a teenager, he packed up and moved with his family to the United States, right around Philly. Imagine that. One day, you're attending regular American high school, and years later, you're in charge of one of the most volatile regions on the planet. But everything changed in 1967. While most teens his age were figuring out college applications, Netanyahu flew back to Israel to join one of the most elite military units out there, Sayeret Matkal. You know how movies show those high-risk, quiet, surgical missions, the don't breathe, don't blink, one mistake and it's over kind? Yeah, that was his actual job. And here's where things get wild. In 1972, a passenger jet, Sabena Flight 571, was hijacked by terrorists. Netanyahu's team was sent to rescue the hostages in a mission so tense that even Hollywood would say, "Nah, too dramatic." The operation, called Operation Isotope, was led by Ehud Barak, who would later become his political rival and prime minister. The rescue succeeded. Netanyahu was shot in the arm, but he survived, and suddenly, people started noticing his name. But the story takes an even darker turn. In 1976, Netanyahu's older brother, Yoni, was killed in another hostage rescue mission, this time in Uganda. Yoni's death didn't just break Netanyahu's heart, it shaped his entire worldview. Many people believe this was the moment that pushed him from the battlefield toward the political battlefield. After studying at MIT and working at Boston Consulting Group, Netanyahu returned to Israel to honor his brother's legacy and jumped straight into diplomacy. He worked at the Israeli embassy in Washington. Then, at the United Nations, he fought to expose long-hidden Nazi war crime documents. This was a guy who knew how to talk, persuade, and push pressure points. And soon, politics came calling. By 1988, he entered the Knesset. 3 years later, he was leading the Likud party. And in 1996, boom, Netanyahu became the prime minister of Israel, beating Shimon Peres in a razor-close election. But here's the thing about Netanyahu. He didn't rule like a traditional politician. Some people saw him as a strong protector. Others saw him as a hardliner. But everybody agreed on one thing. The man knew how to survive political storms. He signed peace agreements like the Hebron and Y Accords, pushing forward negotiations with the Palestinians. At the same time, he pushed economic reforms, privatized government sectors, and tightened Israel's financial system. Then suddenly, he was out, lost the 1999 elections. Game over? Right? Nope, not even close. He stepped back, took private sector jobs, wrote books, toured, talked, and waited. And in 2009, Netanyahu marched right back into the prime minister's office like he never left. Now, things escalated. He clashed with President Obama over Iran's nuclear program. He called a U.S.-Iran deal a historic mistake. And in 2015, just 2 weeks before Israeli elections, he did something unheard of. He addressed the U.S. Congress against the sitting American president's policy. Who does that? Netanyahu. That's who. But confrontation wasn't his only battlefield. From 2014 onward, conflict with Hamas erupted again. Rockets, airstrikes, international criticism, tense cabinet fights. Israel was on fire politically and militarily. And then another twist. Investigations. Not one, not two, but 3 separate cases alleging bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. He was accused of taking gifts from businessmen. He was accused of trying to manipulate media coverage. He called it all a witch hunt. Does that phrase sound familiar to American audiences? Police said they had enough evidence to indict him. Protests filled the streets, thousands. Tel Aviv was practically vibrating with tension. And still, he stayed in office. 2019 came, then 2020. Israel held 3 elections because nobody could form a stable government. It was political chaos, coalitions collapsing, alliances breaking, Netanyahu fighting for his future like a man in a corner. Then the final blow. In January 2020, Netanyahu was officially indicted. Yet he didn't resign, didn't run, didn't hide. He fought, and he kept rebuilding political coalitions like a puzzle only he knew how to solve. Now, love him or hate him, here's the real question. How does one man, surrounded by military scars, family tragedy, diplomatic battles, wars, U.S. showdowns, and corruption charges, continue to rise again and again? Is it strategy? Is it survival instinct? Or is it simply that the story of Benjamin Netanyahu is bigger than one man? It's tied to the identity, fear, and future of an entire nation. Well, remember the moment I teased at the beginning? The moment that shaped every decision Netanyahu made? Here it is. It was the death of his brother, Yoni, the commander who died trying to save hostages. Netanyahu has said time and time again that Yoni's sacrifice became the compass for his life. Every fight, every negotiation, every political risk, he saw it through the lens of his brother's last mission. To him, every threat was personal. Every decision had life or death stakes. And once you know that, his entire story looks different, doesn't it? So tell me, is Netanyahu a hero shaped by tragedy? A strategist playing 5-dimensional chess? Or a leader who held on to power a little too tightly? Drop your thoughts below, because this story, it's far from over.